that a little more. Oh, Rob, yeah. And I did notice, can we talk about that now? Is that okay, Gretchen? Or,
sure.
I did notice there's nothing in the index columns, and that doesn't matter much to us, but the very first column usually has a number that lists the sequence, and there was nothing there this week. So I don't know if that has any relevance or.
That we don't care about it either.
Okay, that's good.
We removed it a long time ago and put it back because somebody was concerned about it. I've forgotten now because it was so long ago.
I mean, the only thing that's nice, the main thing that's nice is if you have a long list, and actually we're seeing shorter lists now. When we do our domain allocation count, the counts, it's just right there, how many sites you've looked at, whatever. But in terms of actual work, it's really, So, okay.
I mean, I can make sure it comes back. It's, we had to completely rewrite the way those things are all sorted. And in doing that, the numbers got screwed up. So I just emptied them out kind of temporarily.
Yeah.
Because the sorting is now dramatically more complicated because we want it to be sorted by priority, but we don't want the things with the same diff hash to be in different places. And you can have the same change, but different priorities because the same change is characteristically different on different pages. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So just so you know, I mean, I don't think that's a priority for us to have that numeric. It just was an observation.
It's not hard to put back in. It's just that I didn't have time to work on the spreadsheets that you get until midnight Pacific time Monday. And the spreadsheets go out at 3 a.m. Pacific time Monday. So
there we go.
I didn't have a lot of time and I was very tired.
Understood. So can you explain a little sort of what happens to come up with that 0 to 1 ranking?
Well, I can do one better. Give me just a moment.
And I forgot, how many places is it? 4 or 5?
Four.
4? Okay.
Let's change that. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, but hopefully, if you look at the highlighted part, hopefully this is kind of readable. It's really simple right now. The algorithm isn't doing anything very complicated. Okay. So it runs it through our text differ, our source differ, and our links differ. So when you go to like source changes only and text changes only, like those diffs plus the links diff. And basically for the source and for the text, you are getting basically, so we calculate the hash based off of those. And then we figure out how many changes there were and how long it was, because length is something you used to have. So really the only reason we calculate length is so that we can put it in the spreadsheet, but maybe it makes sense to throw away because probably the more meaningful thing is count, like number of changes. But debatable, right? Because length tells you more like how many words changed. We can also put in magnitude, which is in here it's text diff ratio and source diff ratio. So that's ratio of the page, like amount of the page that was changed. So like 1% or like 80%, whatever. And then from those, we calculate the priority, and the priority gets sort of different weights depending on whether it was a change in the text diff, just the source diff, or in the links diff. So we give links a pretty high priority, saying like if a link was changed, like just much more likely you want to look at that. And then text and source, we pick one. So if there was a text change, we don't consider the source change and then priority. If there was no text change, we consider the source change. And the source change by default gets you at least 0.1 and up to, I think, 0.2. And the source change gives you at minimum 0 and at most 0.1. And the text change gives you a minimum 0.1 and at most 0.4. And the value, the range that you are in there is the natural log of the percentage change. So the reason it's a natural log is so that if a little bit changed, it goes up higher, quicker. So as you hit like 80% changed, the difference in priority value between 80 and 100% changed is very little, while the difference between like 0 and 20% changed is very high, right? So if you have 0 changed, then the priority is 0. If you have like 10% changed, then the priority is like 0.2 rather than 0.1. So it's kind of going up quickly. So that's why we do the natural log.
Yep.
And then the one other thing we do is if one of the versions involved in the change that we're calculating was an error, we just cut priority down to no more than 0.1.
Okay.
So if it was an error, like, because we always have these intermittent errors, we cut the priority down to 0.1 and just say, you probably didn't want to look at it, but it's more than 0, so that like in case we misjudged whether it was an error or something else, or like you still do want to look at it, it shows up with something more than 0 because there were other things that triggered priority.
Right. Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
But most of the time we cap it that way because most of the time when you get an intermittent error, it would otherwise log as extremely high priority because the entire page just changed. It went from like lots of content to like, boy, there's nothing here. The server broke.
Yeah.
So like everything changes.
Right. Yeah. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that maps to our experience.
Yeah.
And I saw that you did point out that some of these sort of newsfeed changes would have a higher number just because of the amount of change on the page, even if it's not particularly important, right?
Yeah, because if they're present, they're different on almost every snapshot.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're kind of automatically going to be like, here's a sizable chunk of the page that has changed. So they may cause significant noise in this algorithm.
Right.
And so one question is, does that cause so much noise as to make this useless? And another question is like, if not, I guess like the first question is like, is that? And then, it's long been on the roadmap that we need to have some heuristics around identifying those and not counting them or noting them as like a particular kind of change that, depending on your circumstances, you may or may not want to pay attention to. So, but that's not done yet. When we get there, then we will probably just not include them in the priority calculation. So if the change was only in a like news feedy part of the page, then we would probably just not include them. Unless you want us to like include it, but with a very small priority or something. Like lots of options on the table there. Yeah, right. And the other one that is much closer that we will probably do sometime this week or next week is those keywords that Eric posted. So I think I posted a link to the GitHub issue in the chat, so you can follow along if you want. You can suggest added keywords if you want. But basically, we'll give extra high priority to changes where those keywords were changed, were either added or removed.
What were those 2 words?
There's like 60 or something.
Oh! I thought you said 2. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Keywords.
Key, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's probably my hearing. Okay. Oh, so yeah, those are that's some of that big list of terms that Eric had come up with. Good, great.
Yeah. So we'll get, specialized extra priority for those in sometime in the next week or two, because it's the question for us is just like, where does that list get stored in a way that doesn't tie it to our source code, since we're trying to make sure that all this stuff is reusable by, Internet Archive and other people.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's easy when those are small things, but when it's a giant list of words, then it's like, oh, this can't just be a configuration option. It has to actually live somewhere.
Right. Thank you. Really interesting to see how it all evolves. Right.
I think it's going to be really useful. I'm excited to see how it plays out.
The
priority.
I sure hope so. Yeah, also definitely post on the main public web monitoring channel if there are ones that you look at that you're like, why is this so high? It certainly shouldn't be, or why is this not prioritized? It really should have been.
Exactly.
And we can look at it and puzzle our brains through and try and figure out what we could have keyed off of to up it or lower it and do differently in the future.
Yeah. Great. Good.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Marcy, you want to share the important changes?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one. And actually, Rob might appreciate it a little too. I mean, not that he doesn't always, but hold on. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is the state local energy site, and what they've added now is a sidebar link to the greenhouse gas equivalencies calculator. I love it. This calculator helps translate abstract measurements into concrete terms. So those are the units there. And then at the bottom of the page, I should note that has been a part of this page of tools for a long time. There's been this equivalencies calculator, but they've added it as a sidebar, and they have also said integrate the calculator widget into your website. And so, I mean, this is when you go to, that's what you see when you go to the calculator widget.
That's kind of neat.
It is kind of neat, and it's an interesting addition, right? So I just thought it was something different that we've seen, and also a helpful tool that acknowledges that greenhouse gas emissions exist. Right? And actually, a little sidebar thing related to that, Gretchen, is that when I find something like this, I still feel like we're not being well served necessarily by all the titles of the columns, because it's, they're still oriented towards removals, on the, so it says change or removal or deletion, whatever, and then we have that one column where we talk about content or access increase or decrease. But I feel like we should be able to capture, and when maybe it's, is it important that we have a separation of the term removal from other things, or is change enough for those columns? So it's something for you to think about, because I think we lose something. I mean, I'll click it. I mean, I'll put a 1 there, but it's like, well, but it doesn't really convey that it's an addition of something that hasn't been there before. So,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was the one thing. I just thought it was interesting. And it's also for state and local governments and tribes. So it's a tool. We've seen tools removed in the past. So it's interesting to see something there like this. Yeah. Okay. That was it for me.
And that was on the state local energy?
And the
previously known
tools
as state and local climate and energy?
Right. The state local energy. Under EPA, Chris is very funny, right? I'm not funny, but odd. Yeah. And it's the tools page. So there, a whole list of tools with links. The fact that they highlighted this and have a widget. Interesting.
I guess we've seen some other additions of tools lately also, like the EJ screen and...
That's right.
Yeah. That's the only one that's coming to mind right now. But
yeah.
Not all bad.
Definitely seeing a lot fewer changes though. Yeah. Are you tracking all that, Rob? Probably you just have it somewhere in your database, right? The numbers that are popping up and
I mean it's easy to calculate actually. But I haven't really been keeping track of how many every week we wind up surfacing in the sheets.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of interesting to think about. And we had talked about July 5th, right? July 6th. That's when Wheeler took over from Pruitt. And just looking at that date and just sort of post and pre might be something that's worth just capturing.
That's interesting. It's super easy to do, and it wouldn't even be too hard to generate like a histogram or a CSV of like changes per day or changes per week, either pages that were changed per week or changes per week, which are different numbers.
Oh yeah,
that's also another interesting thing to look at, right? Because in these sheets, your sheets don't really show you how many changes happened on a given page over the time period. So you might have, it would be an interesting thing to see if there's a difference between, like you might have only a few pages changed, but each of those pages was like really heavily and repeatedly edited during the time period or something.
Yeah. Great. Gretchen, were we ever able to find a time on when to meet for the group? It was looking where everybody could meet at the same time.
It looks like the time that most people can meet is still this Friday.
Okay.
But it's only 9 of 12.
That's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah.
3/4. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So so from 1 to 1:30 it looks like 9 of 12, and 1:30 I think we'd need at least an hour. But it'd be 8 of 12 for that second half hour. But I do think that looks like the best time, because the next most populous time is Monday evening, and again we'd have an hour with 8 people. So I think it makes sense to go with with the
Friday. The Friday.
Do you guys think that 9 of 12, and I haven't actually calculated exactly who hasn't responded yet, but do you guys think that's enough, a high enough percentage?
I guess I would want to have a little bit of the filter of who the 3 are that can't make it, just based on their experience and, contributions in the past. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, unfortunately, Jake can't make that time.
Boo.
I know. It's Jake and Julia and Tyler. And it's kind of a bummer because I think it's 3 people with like really different different like ways of engaging, different like lengths of engagement, all that. So because I do want to I think that everybody's perspective would be really useful because to get everybody on the same page, what is our shared goal, especially with Tyler can't make this meeting time very frequently, so I want him to feel like a part of things,
sure.
But then if we did the Monday, it'd be Dan, Kevin, Sarah, and Tyler could not make the Monday evening time.
Yeah.
I could send it out again with a new one with later times, because it probably was about it. I ended them at midnight London time, which unfortunately is what time is that West Coast time?
8 hours.
Yeah, so that's only 4 p.m. West Coast time. So that was, yeah. In part, I didn't actually know how to make it go to the next day.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
so
it's
in
tough.
part laziness.
There's also Doodle, but you have to Doodle. You have to block out. I think particular times. You can't just be have people fill in when they're available.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Yeah. It's an interesting question and trade-off because this might be a continual, crapshoot as far as people's availability. So, if we get 9 out of 12, and maybe it's worth it to have for you to have maybe a separate little meeting with the other 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then have either after, which would probably be after, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can have the benefit of what was discussed.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Julia?
Speaking of the devil. Hi.
For some reason, I have no sound right now.
We can hear you.
Oh,
you can hear us?
We can hear you.
I can't hear anything. Uh-oh.
Well, how's the sound coming now?
It sounds like a no.
Oh, now she's gone. Julia. It's the spirit playing through. Anyway, so it may make sense if that works, just to get the word out. And
It's working now.
Yay.
Yay.
I have no idea what happened. I just had to leave and come back.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Sorry I haven't been here for a while. I'm glad I'm finally back.
We've
Yay!
missed you.
We're good. We got a good explanation from Rob of this new column of an algorithm that calculates priority, which is going to be awesome, or is awesome.
I saw that in the Slack, and then I was using it a little, and I really appreciated that when there was like no change at all, it was a 0. So
Yay, yeah, right. You're right. That's big in and of itself, right?
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to say that just reminded me. So I saw, Gretchen, that you posted. It sounded like you might have put up the Versionista specific sheets this week. Now that I got all that priority column stuff in, all the sheets should have all this info. So even for the Versionista sheets, we're not actually taking any of that info from Versionista anymore. It's all stuff that we calculate. And since we calculate it for all the sources and everything.
Okay.
So 1 week of not good enough, and you said that, and I went, and implemented the fastest way that I could get it to work right.
Awesome. So wait, so it doesn't matter, because I was a little bit confused. I did a little bit of spot checking of like different, because they're now the 4 different emails. And so I did some spot checking on them, and it looked like the ones with the Internet Archive, the scrape from Internet Archive, didn't have data in the, like, any of the diff columns.
It should have, because that's where we. Ooh, okay, well, I have to figure out what's going on. It's also possible, because we had all kinds of server issues since changing over the infrastructure last week. It's also possible that there was still a big backlog of analyses that it was still working through when it sent out the sheet, so maybe they weren't all done. They were done when I got up again Tuesday morning.
That might really make sense, because I did notice a pattern that it was always the ones at the beginning of the spreadsheet list that didn't have them, but then further down, I was like, oh, maybe it scraped, like, okay. That makes sense.
It could be something like that, because basically we have to pull in the data and then we have to send it through the analysis pipeline. Mm-hmm. And especially when it comes to Internet Archive, maybe I should adjust when we calculate the sheets. When it comes to, so for Versionista, we pull in data every hour. And so we get small additions every hour. We get somewhere between like 20 and 100 versions that we then have to analyze. But with Internet Archive, once a day, we get 10,000. So it takes longer to work through an Internet Archive import because it's dramatically larger. And so it may be that I need to adjust the schedule also, because we will have, it may be that the time at which we're generating sheets, we will have imported a whole pile of things from Internet Archive, but we will not have analyzed most of them yet, which means they'll be new, so they'll be likely to show up as the latest change for a page. So an unanalyzed Internet Archive import will be likely to be the change that we show in the spreadsheet instead of a change just prior to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
I saw that Mark from the Wayback Machine proffered his help to make things work for us. What did that mean? Was there anything substantive there?
I don't think so. Knowing Mark is the sort of person who gets like very excited about a whole lot of different things, and so is trying to help everybody everywhere all the time. So occasionally the result of that is that he, I think it seems to me like occasionally he reads through something too quickly and responds in a way that if you were reading the conversation very closely, is not what he would have said. And so everybody who's deep in that conversation is like, what? So I think that happens occasionally with him.
Okay.
I think this was an instance of that.
Cool. Okay. So, Julie, the other thing that we were just talking about is the when to meet, and trying to see if right now the two leading options are Friday afternoon, but that is one that you wouldn't be able to make. Like it's the Hyatt, like 9 of 12 who have responded could make it, but it'd been really unfortunate to miss you and Jake and Tyler. And then the other time, the next highest times, 8 people can make it. And that would be the Monday evening. Then we'd miss Dan and Kevin and Sarah and Tyler. So just trying to figure out what the best option is, or if I should make a new poll, either like further out or later or something like that.
Regarding Friday, I am going to a conference all day, and so it's possible that I can flip out and make a call, but I don't know that right now. So I just didn't want to say I'm available, but there's a chance that I could get on. So if you do end up with that time, I can try my best.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That'd be a maybe. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think just so people can get it on their calendars, maybe I should say yes, we're doing it then, and then maybe for anyone that can't make it, we can have a follow-up meeting, kind of catch up and get all the other perspectives and ideas, so we can all be on the same page.
Sounds good.
And if I do make it, it's going to be a call, not a
face-to-face.
but I don't think that's a big deal. So, or hopefully not.
All right, let's see. Next on the agenda, we just talked about this lovely new column. And so the domains we'll talk about after we kind of square away our strategic plan and how we want to then reassign domains from there. And I'm very slowly chipping away at the training materials. They should be, I thought I'd have them finished. My goal is to have them finished by tonight, and then black mold issue came up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so chipping away there, and they should be finished soon. Just kind of plugging along.
Right.
And I don't know if there's any updates from research team. Not so far, at least. Leif, the research team and some folks in the interviewing team had met to talk about kind of compiling a timeline of enforcement of web page changes that may relate to those. So Leif has just started a timeline of those of different enforcement actions in a spreadsheet that he posted in the general channel. And so it might be useful to then look at those and see if we have any web page changes related to those. Can put those in a new column. But building that out, that's something that I'm trying to start for the pesticides. Since we saw so many kind of strange changes related to pesticides, kind of presentation of information about these policies, and then also some reducing emphasis on the health risks of pesticide applications. But right now it's just in a Word doc in the notes folder. But I think a timeline like this might be really useful for that as well. And then report writing, Marcy, you want to give a quick recap for Julia of where we stand with reports?
Yeah. So the Migratory Bird Treaty Act report is basically done, and we offered it as an exclusive to Elizabeth Sjogren, who is with, well, it's now called Reveal News. It used to be the Center for Investigative Reporting. It was an odd name change, Reveal News. But she had written about the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and also science. She covers sort of science and the environment. And so we offered her an exclusive, and then she sat on it for a while and then came back to us with some sort of odd questions, which I responded to. And now she's taking it to the powers that be to see if they want to go with it or not. And, I think the issue for her seems to be that change in access or reduction in access just doesn't cut it as much as something more that more substantive she would like to be able to see. So we'll see, but that's happening there. And then Justin Derry's hydraulic fracturing report looks like it's ready to go, and so Gretchen's going to get it out the door to the journalist pool next. And then what's happening with the sage grouse? Anything with Justin Shell?
Mm-hmm. I am working on the technical review.
Okay.
And then, and hopefully, I don't think I'll finish it this week, but next week should be the plan for that, which is great because that's also a really, I think it's a really interesting report.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and Rob already gave us solid explanation of the priorities. Is there anything else you want to add for update?
On the dev side, just to say sorry about the various outages we had last week. In moving everything to a whole new infrastructure, some stuff we got wrong. And I think mostly we're squared away on that stuff, so hopefully we won't see anything big like that again in the near future. We won't have, obviously mistakes will happen from time to time, but we won't have another week of everything's crazy. So sorry about that, and should be more stable now.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just pasted in, or not pasted, sorry, just typed in some of my own notes from the All Edgy meeting that was last week. So you can read through there. But it was an interesting conversation. The bulk of it was around kind of where we currently stand with regards to deliverables for mostly for the Packard grant, but I guess also the Doris Duke grant, and then kind of discussing any concerns or roadblocks or any of that. And I think some resounding themes across working groups are a backlog of work, feeling kind of trying to how do we get the information we have out the door. There's this kind of bottleneck in every group, or at least in the interviewing group and in our group, and then also kind of the and where are we heading? What are we prioritizing? Kind of what's the end game? And I think some of this has come up with relation to Packard's asked us for these evaluation metrics and asking us for our target values for 2022. And it's, we haven't, as an organization, had a whole lot of thinking that far out. there's so much that could change between now and 2022 that I hope to God changes between now and 2022.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So anyway, so I think those are kind of some of the main themes of like mostly like wanting some clear direction, and making sure that we can like get our work out the door. And
That's some of what we'll be talking about in our visioning session too, right? Or web monitoring.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like interesting because I wonder, does having metrics ever like impact the work that we do? Like, are we supposed to have a certain number of changes reported out at the end of the year, a certain number of reports made? Because I don't know if you should feel pressured to hit a target with that necessarily, because it's based on the information that.
Yeah, like a quota system, right? It sounds like a quota system. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like trying to frame it for the funders that like last year was like a fire hose of changes, and like now like it's kind of settled into more of a steady stream, and like but we can also do a lot more like synthesis work and understanding the impact of these changes, and like and so I try to frame it more in terms of like we can do a lot more like textured work now, even if the volume is different.
I mean, isn't that also part of what the two consultants are supposed to help with in terms of the planning for organizational effectiveness and whatever, right?
Yeah, so we did get the organizational effectiveness grant, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, and that means we have two consultants, one of whom will work with EDGI on kind of like an organization-wide strategic plan and direction. And she's, she's worked with a lot of different organizations to think of how they can be like politically effective, how they can be, coalition building, how they, a lot of that kind of work, and has I think her degree is in climate science. So she also has a lot like, really deep subject matter knowledge as well, and connections in the field. And then the other organizational effectiveness consultant will work with us in terms of our internal structuring. How do we work together? How do we work efficiently? And with, a non-hierarchical system that we're like, empowering each other to do our best work, and like motivating each other, and, just how do we not become like a traditional nonprofit that, kind of, actually, I really appreciate the consultant. She has said that like, so often nonprofits, especially like justice oriented nonprofits, actually then build in this same kind of hierarchy that oppresses the people, like, this kind of like emulates the oppression that the people are trying to oppose in the in the world. But so how do we do that? And there aren't really a ton of like great models out there. So working on efficiency while like really digging into our values. So I think it'll be great. And then also there's money for an in-person gathering, and we're hoping to get like, broad representation. And so there's money, there's about, I think, $12,000 for travel funds. So a lot of folks who are professors can have like kind of some slush funds for travel, but there should be enough money there to bring a lot of people together that wouldn't be able to like charge it to their kind of slush fund account. And that's looking like probably January or February would be the most likely dates for that in Toronto. So anyway,
good
pitch for coming.
Thank you.
Ooh, that's all on the agenda.
Great. Good.
Are there things people want to talk about? Wow, we're going to finish a meeting early. That's
Great.
that's unusual. Julia, do you have your cat?
My door is actually closed right now, and he's mad at me. So,
Oh.
yeah, he's not in the room right now, unfortunately. But he'd love to say hi. Trust me.
All four of my kitties are back home in North Carolina. I miss them.
Yeah. Good thing they're not there with the black mold, though.
Yeah,
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And just
Right.
life in general. It's like, it's so insane here. It's like the traffic all the time, and like tiny living conditions. And my cat that I've had, my partner had 3 cats. I had 1 cat. We became a 4-cat household. And my cat became the bully. Like, it was very rough. So we just couldn't have them all in this like tiny little space, because my cat, like,
that's why I can't have another cat. My cat is not. He'd be very territorial.
yeah, it's rough. It's kind of like, I'm sure this is what parents feel when like they find out that their kid like pushed someone else on the playground or something. So it's like, but Scout, how could you do this? You're so sweet. Like, she'd get it.
I'm not around.
Yeah. She would get it high traffic. Like, she would see where the high traffic points were,
No.
and like would hide, and then like come out and hiss at the other cats as they were like trying to walk by to get food, or like anything.
Oh my God.
It's very rough. Rob, do you have pets?
No pets.
No pets.
No pets.
Marcy, do you?
No, we had a basset hound for the longest time named Sophie, who was just wonderful. But after she passed, she lived to 13, which is pretty good for basset hound. And our kids loved her, and the kids in the neighborhood just adored her. But that's been it.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Well,
Good to see you all. I'm sorry.
Yes,
I haven't
wonderful to
been
see
around.
you.
I'm gonna really try to make it next Wednesday too. Wednesdays have been a little bit harder than Mondays are for me, unfortunately. But
oh, sorry.
it's okay. I'm happy I was able to make it tonight, and
Yes.
hopefully it'll work again next week. It was the 2 Jewish holidays in a row kind of threw me off too.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it every year. Right?
Of course. But
It's great to see you, Julia.
Yeah,
good to see you
all.
too.
All right. Thanks, Gretchen. Thanks, Rob.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll be in
Bye.
touch. Bye-bye.